Welcome to day 23 of a screenwriter's journey. A little forward here. Sometimes I do these commentaries 2 or 3 in a day. I don't know that I've ever done more than that. And sometimes I wait a week, well, not a week, a few days just because I have to. So this one I'm doing immediately after day 22. So hopefully, because I just was reading that and had commentary on it, I'll have a little more insight into what is going on. Let's get into it and find out. All right, so I literally left right in the middle of this scene. I must have had to go do something because normally it's A, I run out of ideas, or B, I've got to go to work or I got to go to sleep. So I just looked at that. So 5/18, May 18th. So this is about 6 weeks ago, roughly, when I wrote this compared to when I'm recording it. So now we're getting into sort of the nitty gritty and the nuts and bolts of how is this all going to happen. And basically, if Lexi is the granddaughter, if she's in the bloodline, like Rachel is saying, then they're going to have to act pretty darn quickly. Well, no, if she is, sorry, the granddaughter, then they've got to still reel Vic in by getting the two together, her going to him or him coming to her or something. And if it's negative, then they've got to get them out of there as quick as possible because they don't know what's going to happen if she's not the grandkid. So I think what I just said and what I was thinking at the time of if things go well and she is, I mean, if it's a match with a DNA, whatever, Ancestry, we could do a sponsorship by Ancestry or whatever. So I'm thinking if Vic Salerno has already been there and the FBI knew, if the FBI set up this trampoline park as like the whatever, then why wouldn't they just come and grab him then? But then I thought, well, maybe they've got surveillance on it, but maybe Vic Salerno has got a bunch of muscle hanging around, and so they can't just come and grab him there. Anyways, that was sort of going through my mind, and so if things change, this could have been the seed for that. So where's the handoff take place? He doesn't know if it's at this trampoline park or somewhere else. And so we're back in the trampoline park and intercutting. And sometimes I do end intercutting and I don't put in a slug line. But in this case, I think since I had like 3 different places, I wanted to make it clear where they were. So they've heard the whole story. Lexi is wondering, exactly what's going on. Rachel wants to assure him again that the FBI has said, as she says, guaranteed their safety, which of course that's an overstatement. But then she tells them that they both have to go with the Salerno or his thugs or whatever. And so that conversation could have gone on for a long time. And so when in doubt, teenagers and early 20s, they like to eat. So Lexi just completely stops the conversation and asks Larry if he's hungry. And he basically says, well, no, but I could probably split a medium pizza or a large. So now they start to go, and I'm thinking, Rachel, is she going to, be a hanger-on? Is she just going to stand there? So I'm going to play with this dialogue in the subsequent drafts, but I thought, wouldn't it be interesting if she says room for a third, like, the third leg, or not really the third leg, the odd man out, odd woman out, but Lexi turns and actually smiles and says, sure, Mom, just super matter of fact. And so Rachel, very surprised and happy to hear that, goes after them. So now Holly has heard all this stuff, but she's obviously not at all happy because she's not involved. She had nothing to do with this. And it's like, why did you even have me come back here from the plane that turned around, and then we get back on the plane and come up here if I'm just going to sit on my butt and do nothing? And we don't know for sure. Does Paul have an ulterior motive? We don't know for sure. And Paul is telling Holly that he doesn't know where they're being held. And, you know, Holly is guessing that, well, she's going to guess, I don't want to give anything away, that they're relatively close because, you know, they picked them up at that airfield. They had 3 sedans. The agent brought her here. But most likely, you know, it's not like 100 miles away or something. And so all Paul is saying is, this is as close you're going to get, and you're safe here. This isn't what I signed on for. She hangs up. Abby is like, wow, that's a little harsh. I'm not just going to read the dialogue here because you can do that. And so now this is Holly's hunch. I bet you anything that place is less than 5 miles from here. And Abby proves to be somewhat of a, you know, she's not like a tech whiz like on those CW superhero shows where someone always is, usually a beautiful woman. I'm not saying Abby isn't beautiful, and I'm not saying beautiful women can't do that, but it's just funny on how superhero shows there's that character. I'm thinking of Arrow and Flash in particular. So free Wi-Fi. So Abby's idea here is to go to Google Maps. Actually, that should be Google Earth, shouldn't it? Well, it could be either one because they're kind of interchangeable. But just go to the satellite view and start looking for buildings that look somewhat like the one in the satellite feed. And so she gets a view of the city, and Gary is not too optimistic that she's going to be able to find them. So while that's happening, Gary is wondering, because he heard Holly say, you know, that's not what I signed on for. And so Gary's wondering, you know, what exactly did you sign on for? And this means as in becoming a U.S. Marshal. Because typically, you know, like he says, he's giving some examples of what he would assume that U.S. Marshals do from the movies and, you know, just having known. Which he mentions stuff that obviously Holly has not taken part of at all. And then he's bringing up this thing, which I think has already sort of been brought up before. So I don't know that he would bring this up again. But at the time, I really wanted him to start digging Holly. Not digging Holly in that way, but digging at her, I should say. And then I don't know that this idea that I'm writing lasted very long. But when Gary said you're still young-ish, that really pissed Holly off. And then you can read what happens here. But don't fall in love with this dialogue because I don't know that it's going to make it to the next draft. This is Gary Jobs' name sucking air. Anyone else hungry? So this, I don't know. I mean, I think it kind of serves a purpose. Again, letting Gary know that Holly is large and in charge and could kick his butt any day of the week. And also that she maybe is a little of a hothead, at least right there. And so the question, of course, becomes, will something come of that? Will that be foreshadowing to something she does later? I don't know. When I wrote that young enough for you line, I don't think I had a double meaning in mind, but reading it back now, it could come off that way. Let's just see. All right, so already I've reconsidered this. Little tete-a-tete back and forth. Now I'm thinking, apparently. It looks like I've left the computer. Nope, here I am. So now I'm debating whether I want to keep this whole put him in the headlock. Busting people something guess Paul on other plans. So now, yeah, I'm wondering if we really want to go down this road and pursue this. So now I get this other idea because, Holly's in her late 30s, mid-late 30s, and she doesn't have kids. She's not married, which we've already sort of brought up before with when she was talking to Lexi, I believe, on the drive up or at some point. And so Gary is back in a backhanded way, purposely backhanded maybe, trying to make her feel better or not make her feel better. Let's just see what happens next. Yeah, so I think as I was writing this, I'm kind of realizing that A, we already know all this. B, it's it hitting the nail on the head. And would he really say this, as in his character really say this? And now I'm trying to think up a comeback for Holly. And I mentioned that rule of mine, the loose rule about 4 lines of dialogue. So as you can see, I just cut a couple over there. I'm wondering, as I wrote that, gives him a shut up look. But then again, he gets 3 more lines of dialogue. So that's kind of 5 or 6 lines, but at least something happened in between. And then Holly immediately digs back at Gary, insinuating that he's done something to put Lexi in danger, although that's not really fair, obviously. Holly's line, I get looking out for number 1, but is Lexi even number 2? So now I'm playing with that, and maybe I realized that she wouldn't say that. And maybe, again, I didn't really want to go down that road. It'd be funny if someone is watching this. Well, it would be awesome if like 100,000 people are watching this, but they see this dialogue that I'm erasing and they go, oh, that's way better than your new dialogue, or they steal it and they use it in their screenplay. But this has been documented, so the whole world knows that this is all my dialogue. Joking. Yeah, so I obviously like this back and forth between Gary and Holly, and I'm trying to get to the point, I think, of Gary's line there, where it wasn't my job to protect her, so to speak. And can he say it wasn't my job, or does he say it's your job? I don't know which one fits better or works better. You can see down there I wrote some lines that aren't in dialogue, but just lines that I don't know if I thought of right then. I guess I wasn't paying attention, or if I thought of them the day before, and I just wrote them there as notes to myself. So now I'm really, as they say, wordsmithing this. Yeah, because that's kind of the crux of the biscuit, as they say, or at least as I say, as far as Gary's concerned. That what are you more worried about, saving her or your reputation? And I'm sure that's not a novel bit of dialogue, but I think it really is the essence of what they're talking about here. And that whole thing of dialogue and subtext and everything is certainly, when you read screenplays and even more when you watch movies that are just have layers of dialogue where people don't say necessarily what they're thinking or what they mean, but it reveals other things. I love dialogue like that. And I can't remember the movie I saw recently that it may have been a TV show. I think Halt and Catch Fire, which if you haven't seen Halt and Catch Fire, which is on Netflix now, wow, it is amazing. I love it. One of my sons turned me on to it. Anyways, just between the three of us. Okay, he backs away. So the beauty about having a third person in this scene or in any scene, and it doesn't have to be a third person, but you can have two people in the middle of a heated argument, and when you can't resolve it or don't want to resolve it, you can have, the phone ring, the door open, or in this case, Abby yelling out, "I got it." And so while they've been talking, Abby's been working, and it appears that she has found the building. And Holly is wondering how far away. Abby confirms her suspicions that it's not far away. I think I may have tweaked that mileage in a subsequent draft, but let's just see. Maybe I didn't. Okay. All right, so are you going to go in with guns blazing? No, I'm going to order pizza. I knew how I wanted the scene to end, and obviously Gary is saying the same thing that Larry said, and I didn't, maybe not the exact same thing, but pretty close. And again, the whole twins kind of ESP, blah, 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 which has been alluded to before, but has never really played out. So this is maybe a little hint of it, and that kind of foreshadows something that may or may not happen later on that is probably a little more meaningful than they both like pizza. But so I think it's a little abrupt that Holly has jumped ahead to saying, "I'm going to order dinner," but I knew that's where the scene, I wanted it to end. And so that kind of got me there for now. That's sort of one of those placeholder things. And sometimes I'll just go on and keep writing and writing and writing the next scene and the next scene, and then I'll come back knowing in this case, I appear to be just beating this dialogue to death to try to get it right. And again, I don't know that it's a right or wrong way to do it, as opposed to going on and then coming back, an hour later or a day or a week later and rereading the scene and saying, "Oh, all right, now I understand how I should do this." But I guess the point there is my tendency is usually to work on a scene until I'm at least mostly happy with it. Once in a while I'll end a scene, I'll go, "Man, that was crappy," but I just got to keep writing. More often I'll work on it until I'm at least happy enough that I don't think when I come back I'm just going to totally hate it. And I think I'm getting better at that, but I still come back and make tons of changes, as you have seen and will continue to see, some bigger than others. Yeah, so now we're back to the back and forth between Holly and Gary about, are you going to go in with guns blazing? If I had an extra gun, I'm sure you'd be right behind me. We'll never know. And then Holly, I'm pretty sure we do. So again, it's like little dig at each other. And that's the kind of dialogue that is really easy to write. Well, once you get that seed idea, it's easy to write 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 lines, and then next thing you know, you've got a half page of dialogue, and then you've got to stop and pull back and say, "Whoa, does that really deserve 30 seconds of screen time, or can I say it sooner, more concise? Have I already said it? What is it really adding to the story?" So in this version, Abby is the one who breaks them up again, breaks up the argument by just saying, I believe she said, as "who's hungry" or something like that. To Abby, "she's buying." Not sure if Gary's line is correct. So now, there's really nothing they can do this evening. So I've got to get them kind of literally settled in for the night. And so I guess the idea of the pizza, that wasn't really the end of the scene, but then I thought it would be funny if in effect for buying dinner, Holly goes, yeah, that's fine, I'll buy dinner, but I get the bed, Abby, you get the chair, and ... So I do remember ending the scene. I thought that was kind of a fun way to end it. And I don't know if I knew at this point what was going to happen next, but I believe tomorrow I'm going to have kind of what I think is a good idea, if it's still in the current draft of the screenplay. But anyways, day 23 has come to an end. Man, this was just really working that one scene, I think, for the most part, in the hotel. There was a little bit, I guess, of other stuff, but it's funny how some days you can write when you're doing, what I have come to call virgin writing, or when you're going back over. Some days you can spend, let's say, 2 hours, which in this case would be 25 minutes or 20 minutes, 25 minutes, I guess, of sped up writing. And you can do 2 or 3 or 4 scenes and feel like you're flying. And then some days you're just reworking. And I guess that all comes from not being the world's best outliner. But I don't know. To me, even when I outline, until you write dialogue, this is my contention, until you write dialogue, until you hear the characters talk, I think you're fooling yourself to think that you can basically write your screenplay in outlining. And people have and will continue to prove me wrong. But I guess I just like the screenplay writing process a lot more than outlining, which I'm sure I've said a time or two. So day 23 is at an end. Day 24 is one click away if you are so inclined to binge watch this. I'd like to know in the comments, has anyone just started on day 1 and you've just been watching this for like 3 straight days now? Very unlikely. But I hope you do leave comments. I hope you tell everyone about it. I hope you come back, and I hope to see you when you do. For now, Screenwriter's Journey signing off.